Hello, hello, everyone. It is me, Alicia Renee, and I am the host of She Exudes Now Virtual Talk. Thank you so much for joining us today. And it is a new season. It is January 2023, and I'm just excited about kicking things off with a blast. The She Exudes Now Virtual Talk serves to help women and empower them and educate them as well on a variety of topics that are important to today's women, and also encouraging them to have more faith, be confident, and prosperous as well. So, I am just elated to get started with our topic for today. We are talking about creating effective boundaries. And what a perfect time to start talking about boundaries by kicking it off at the beginning of the new year. So I am going to have my guest join us today. It is Miss Leslie Limardo, and
Mhm.
she is a life coach and a boundaries expert. So if
Yes.
you guys have questions, or look us up later because she can definitely give us some insight into how to manage and have healthy and effective boundaries. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, how are you? Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I've been following you for a while. I think we're both in one of the Christian communicators group, and I'm just so excited that you decided to join us and lend your expertise today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So, the show is called She Exudes Now.
Mhm.
And the purpose is to talk more about what we're exuding and find ways to exude other things as well. So
Mhm.
I'm going to ask you, what are you exuding today?
Today, I am exuding um, excitement and
Hmm.
confidence, if I could do
Okay,
both.
good.
I love talking about boundaries.
Hmm.
And this is one of my favorite topics. I've been looking forward to talking about this all day and just working myself up. And just even I was reflecting today about the different boundaries that I've had to set over
Hmm.
the past years and thinking about how difficult it was, and just becoming more confident in
Hmm.
doing so. And so that's what I'm exuding today. I'm energized to
I
discuss this
see
today,
it.
and I feel so much more confident because I have. So I'm
Hmm.
excited.
Yeah, I definitely see it. I feel it, and I'm like, yes, I feed off of energy. So we're both
Mhm.
wearing pink,
Yes,
so we're feeling
yes,
confident.
we are ready.
Is yes, we're ready. And so I would say today I am exuding hope. That's something that I use often, but
Mhm.
joy as well.
Oh yeah.
I have several reasons to be down and to feel hopeless, but I am choosing to go in a different direction. And so far, so good. So
Amen.
I am
Good.
just elated about that.
Hmm.
So, with that being said, I'm going to give you an opportunity to share more about yourself and tell us how you became this boundaries expert.
Sure. So my name
Mhm.
is Leslie Limardo, and I am a life coach. But prior to being a life coach, I worked in higher education as a dean for over 20 years, 20 years. And part of my job was really helping students manage their lives and teaching them academic skills. So note taking, test prep, test taking, those kind of things. More importantly, I was helping them with time management. And over the years, I began to realize that I wasn't helping people manage their time. I was really helping people manage their lives. This wasn't a I started working the end of my career was in working with adults returning back to school, and I realized that I'm helping them really manage their lives. And in meeting with students one on one, the topic of boundaries kept coming up, but especially for women, boundaries around work, boundaries around care for their children. And so I would always talk to them about this, but I wasn't keeping boundaries myself. And so when I left higher education and I started just kind of my own journey of, okay, what is it that I want now after 20 something years? This was my career. My degree is in this. What do I want now? I started really discovering some of the reasons why I was so stressed and overwhelmed at work, some of the reasons why I, needed to leave that career. And a lot of it was around boundaries. I really didn't have good boundaries for myself. I didn't have boundaries with others, and I needed to fix that. And so, continuing to work with clients and myself, I began discovering more and more why boundaries were so important. And more importantly, I needed to focus on the boundaries that I needed to put around my own life, and helping others now do the same.
Mhm. Awesome. It all starts with it starts with you,
It
and
does.
you being an example, and
Right.
you're an even better leader when you've gone through those
Right.
things, and you can
Hmm.
share your experience, and you have the know-it-all to help people get through it.
That's
So
right.
um, unfortunately, sometimes we do have to kind of hit some of those brick walls in order for us to say, oh, that's an area where I should have created a boundary,
That's right.
and I didn't. So now let's see what I can redo,
Right.
or what I can create.
That's right.
So, along those lines,
Hmm.
what would you say is the purpose of creating a boundary or having a boundary?
It really is they're guardrails.
Mm,
Boundaries are guardrails, and they are an opportunity for you to really understand your lanes and what is acceptable for you and what isn't. Right.
mhm,
And so they help guide you, right, in understanding what I will put up with or what I will
mhm,
deal with or what I won't, right, for yourself as a person and for other people around you. And they are just it's a guide, to
mhm,
help you in managing your life and
mhm.
managing your life well, not just kind of getting by, not just surviving, no, like really managing your life well. You need guardrails, and that's what
Yes.
boundaries help us do.
Yeah. So it's funny, as you were talking, I was hearing stay in your lane.
Yes. I say
We
mind your
often,
business.
yeah,
I say
mind your
mind your
business,
business.
mind the business that pays you,
Yes. Mind your
stay
business.
in your lane. And
Nothing
it's
to do
so
with
funny
you.
because we often don't. As ambitious women, we want to try more things, do more
Mhm.
things. We feel like we can take on the world.
Right.
But there's many times when we need to just say, not right now. It
Right.
doesn't mean you can't do it
Exactly.
eventually, or that you don't, or you won't have the capacity to do it later, but
Mhm.
not right now. Just stay in your lane.
Let me tell you, that is one of the hardest things that my clients hate to hear me say. I think I have not said it. I've said it to every single person I've worked with. You're doing too much.
Mhm.
What? What do you mean?
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, based on what you're saying you want and what you're doing too much because we
Mhm.
want it all.
Mhm.
And we all want it all right now. We want it all
Mhm.
yesterday. And that just is not the way God works.
Yeah.
God doesn't work that way, right? He gives us things slowly. And it's
Mhm.
not the way we're literally meant to live, right?
Mhm.
But it's so difficult to hear because we really, one, believe that we are more capable than we are.
Mhm.
And we believe that we can handle so much more than we're actually capable of handling, or that God wants us to handle, really.
Mhm.
And so that's always such a hard thing to hear is like, you can't, not right now. And
Yeah.
again, just what you said, it's not that it's never, it's just not right now. Right now may not be the season for you to do that, right?
Mhm. And I always think about the saying that says, "We make plans and God laughs."
Yes, he
And
does.
so it's so true because,
Hmm.
you've got your whole year mapped out.
Right, right,
You know exactly what you want to do, and God said,
right,
"Let me throw a twist." I think you
right.
had mentioned before,
Plot
plot
twist.
twist.
Plot twist, right. And it was a pastor, man. I wish I remembered his name. I'll get it for you. But he said, he was like, he compared our lives. He was like, your life is a story. And as part of every good story, there's always a plot twist. And
Mhm.
even now in January, everyone has their goals and everything is planned out. But it's like, where's room for God
Right.
to really move in your life if you have entirely what you want to do down to the T?
Mm.
June can come up and he can tell you, end all of that and
Mhm.
go, just like he did with
Mhm.
Abraham. End
Mm.
all of what you're doing, cut it all out. I want you to stop it all and go do this.
Mhm.
Right. And that's when we become devastated because I'm like,
Mhm.
but my year is
Yeah.
planned out.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah. I
have,
put all this work in.
yes, I have my planner. Like I have my vision board. God, did you see this? Did you see what I did? My
I
vision
don't see
board.
that on my vision board.
Exactly. And he's like, I don't even see vision boards. That's on you.
Mhm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's so hard for us to hear that, but we have to leave room for God to move.
Mm-hmm. That
Yeah.
is very good. And you kind of took me into another direction, but that
Hmm.
is so important because we are supposed to be women of faith or
Right.
people of faith in
Hmm.
period. And when we decide that we want to take charge and we want to lead everything that we do in life, we want to plan out everything, it is really giving no room for God to be
Hmm.
God. It's
Right.
really giving no room for
Hmm.
miracles to immerse in our lives
That's
and
right.
for him to just get the credit and the victory. It's really us just kind of taking back that control and say, you know what,
Hmm.
thank you, God, but I got this. I'm going to go ahead and
Right.
plan this.
Right. And I think that part of it is that one of the things that I realized even in my own practice is that we translate that as strategic. My vision board is strategic. I'm thinking, I'm a planner. I have this vision for what we want, but a lot of it is fear.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with vision or strategy. It's more fear. Like I need to plan everything out so that I don't deal with my own anxieties about not knowing what's happening,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of it is manipulation. I remember I am one of these strategy people. I am a planner, and I remember my career in higher education. Yes, a lot of it was one, and a lot of it I built and I did all this, but a lot of it was manipulation. It wasn't,
Hmm.
and I didn't bring Jesus along with me or hear him. It was like, you got this plan? Good. Okay, because this is where we're going. I didn't
Uh-huh.
bring him, he wasn't leading. It was me leading, him in the back, watching and laughing. Like
Hmm. Exactly.
when you get ready, then you let it go. But a lot of it is not really strategy. We have to leave room for the Holy Spirit to work in our lives if we really want to lead a life
Hmm.
that's led by God.
Hmm. So true. There have been many times in my life where I felt like I was being pulled in a certain direction, or just being that planner. I'm going to do
Hmm.
this, 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 and this, and then I end up hitting a brick wall, or
Hmm.
I get my feelings hurt because, as we mentioned before, we put up so much time and effort into something and it doesn't work out. And
Right.
it's like, did you stop and make sure that you got clarity? You got
Right.
the go ahead from God to
Mhm.
pursue this before just jumping into it.
That's
And
right.
so now I try to use more patience,
Hmm.
discernment to see, is this something that I should even pursue?
That's right.
Even with my weekly to-do lists,
Hmm.
I will write things down and I'll say, okay, Lord, you help me with this.
Hmm. That's
If
right.
there's something that I need to add to it or take it away, that's what I'm going to do, because
Hmm.
on a weekly and a daily basis, we can overwhelm ourselves
That's
when we
right.
don't have to.
That's right. We don't. And he calls us to live in rest.
Hmm.
And when we are just constantly fighting this to-do list, this overwhelm of things that we put on our own plate that
Hmm.
we've chosen to do, then it doesn't leave room for him to really work in our lives in the areas that we need to. And that's why just boundaries with yourself is just so
Hmm.
important, because that's what you've created. You've created a boundary for yourself. Like, I'm not just going to jump in to do things. I'm actually going to set this guardrail for myself to ask, even with my to-do list, even with my daily
Hmm.
tasks, because I know that will keep me more aligned with what it is that he wants me to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So we've kind of talked about, hitting a brick wall or being overwhelmed as a
Hmm.
consequence of not having any boundaries
Hmm.
or not following your boundaries.
Right.
What are some other troubles that you've seen, maybe through working with your clients
Hmm.
or, just talking to other women? What are some other things that they may be occurring as a result of not having good boundaries?
Yeah. So we get ourselves into a lot of trouble, and we get ourselves into situations that God didn't really call us into. We wind up making a mess.
Hmm.
We wind up with having to now clean up some things that we weren't really meant to even carry. If
Hmm.
you're jumping in as the helper. Like, I identify as the helper, right? And I'm constantly helping people. And that was my role. I'm a servant and I love to help people. But then you start getting involved in their situations and you start finding yourself meditating on what they should do and creating a to-do list about what they should do when you have your own to-do list already, right? And you just start jumping in, and all of a sudden now you're cleaning up their mess, you're spending more time on their situations, you're
Hmm.
thinking about their situation, when God didn't call us to, that's not what he meant by carry each other's burdens, is take on the burden. It's
Mm-hmm.
just to carry you through, right? And so we start having to clean up messes. It becomes stressful on our bodies
Yeah.
mentally when we're just carrying so much that we just weren't meant to carry. And then we
Mm-hmm.
have no room to really give ourselves grace, show ourselves compassion, and be there, really be there, right? Be mindful of the people that we have in front of us. One of the things that I
Mm-hmm.
loved about Jesus when you read through the Gospels is that the people that were in front of him were the most important people.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter who was around, it didn't matter what was happening. Whoever he was healing, whoever he was talking to was the most important person. And yet, when we are constantly in this state of overwhelm, constantly in this state of stress because we've gotten ourselves into it, the people that are the most important to us, we don't even have space for them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the mental capacity. We don't have the emotional space to give them because we're giving it to so many other people. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why it's so important to understand, what is it that I want? Who are the most important people to me? Because that's, again, your guardrail. And that's who you
Yeah.
really focus on. It's not everyone. And so we
Mm-hmm.
just start getting into these situations where we're just handling everybody's business. And the other side of that is that then you don't empower them to figure it out. If you're always the
Yeah.
helper, if you're always the one doing things, why do they even have to learn?
Yeah.
And I had
Yeah.
to learn that. I was like, you know what? People have access to the exact same resources I do.
Mm-hmm.
People have access to YouTube. People have access to Google. It's
Yeah.
very rare now that people don't have access, because you could even walk into a public library and have access, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if everyone else has access to the same information that I do, why do I feel that I have to be the one to impart it on everyone,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Amen, sister.
I don't. I don't. I heard it from someone else. I am not your life guru.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have to be people's life gurus. People have to learn how to get the information themselves, and you empower
Yeah.
other people to do that.
Yeah. You mentioned so many great things. You know, with us being sometimes the caretaker or the one that is just kind of being the nurturer or the
Hmm.
helper, yes, we do a disservice to other people because we have created this relationship where it's bring me all the things, I'll
Right.
do it.
Right.
Or we've created this sense that um, they can't do it as well as we can do it.
Hmm.
And if that is the case, where is some teaching?
Right.
Some
Right.
education,
Right.
because sometimes you need to delegate,
Right.
and if it's taking the time to
Hmm.
actually educate the person on how to do it, that could save you loads of time and
Right.
burden in the
Right.
future. And
Right. But
so yeah.
here's the thing that people need to understand is that takers take.
Hmm.
And takers, I know that you mentioned earlier that we sometimes get frustrated or we get angry and we get upset that, wait a minute, nobody's taking my feelings into consideration.
Hmm.
I'm just a stress. Takers take, and they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about their needs. Everyone else is
Right.
always, we're always thinking about our own needs, right?
Hmm.
And so I remember a situation when I used to work in a library, and I worked with technology. And there was one particular person who kept asking me how to do the exact same thing. Oh, I'm just not good at Google. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. And I would just always help her. And I was like, okay, well, here you go. This is simple. And then she would come in with the same thing. And I'm like, didn't I just help you with this?
Yeah.
But I would do it again. I was like, okay. And then she would come back and I was like, okay, didn't I just, okay, well, no, is that I don't do this process every day. And then finally it was like, you know what? We're going to record this. You're
Hmm.
going to just listen to what I said, and you're going to keep playing it back. And every time she came back, and I was like, why don't you go listen to that recording? Because again, in her head, she didn't have to
Hmm.
learn,
Yep.
because I kept helping her. So
Yep.
there was no onus, there was no responsibility, because she knew that she had me at her beck and call, really.
Yep.
Until I was like, wait a minute, what? No, we're gonna record this so you could play it back with
And
you. And,
yeah.
and every single time she asked me for something new, I was like, no, we're gonna record it and you can play it back. And then after a while, she stopped coming
Yeah. It was
because she
like
knew.
you had enabled her. And
Right,
yeah, now she's going to stop coming because she's ran out of excuses
right,
and she
right.
knows that you're not going to do it anymore.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, we have to be conscious of that. Takers are gonna take.
Hmm. Yeah, that's very good too.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I just think about if we're always helping, we're always doing things that we should be delegating or that we just shouldn't even be doing at all,
Hmm.
where is the opportunity for us to grow?
Right. Right.
because we cannot expand if there's
Mhm.
no room to expand.
That's right. That's right. And I think that goes back to what I talk to my clients with is clarity.
Hmm.
In order for your boundaries to really be strong, you have to know what you want. And I think that when you, even for myself, like when I was in higher education, I knew the job that I wanted and I was focused, but I didn't know about everything other the other things in my life, where I
Hmm.
wanted to do with my daughter, what I wanted to do with my finances, where I wanted to live. Like I didn't have these other things thought out.
Hmm.
And so my boundaries, I had none in those areas of my life. My career, yes, because I knew exactly where I was going. But if you don't understand what it is that you want
Hmm.
in the different areas of your life, you will allow anything. There's no focus,
Hmm.
right? Well, once you start putting boundaries and once you understand and clarify for yourself, these are the things that are important, these are the things that I want for myself, then it becomes easier to set
Hmm.
those boundaries.
Yeah.
It's still not easy, but it
Right.
becomes easier to reinforce them because you know, I know what I want. I know what I
Hmm.
want. I know what I want.
It's just like having a plan. And when we talk
Mhm,
about goal setting,
mhm.
we say, write those things down, and map them out. Don't just say, my goal is to lose 50 pounds
Right.
in 3 months. How are you going to accomplish that?
That's
What are
right.
you going to do to hold yourself accountable? What are the checkpoints along the way? And we should definitely have some checkpoints along the way to make sure
Mhm,
that we are measuring our capacity.
mhm,
Have we maxed out physically, emotionally,
mhm.
mentally? Are we kind of spazzing out
That's
and just
right.
being just mean to people because
Mhm.
we're stressed out and tired?
Right.
If so, hey, that's a red flag
Red
that I
flag.
may make some changes.
There's something wrong. And I think
Yeah.
that we have become so accustomed to living that type of life, and
Mhm.
everyone around us is living that type of life, that it's normalized to be
Mhm.
that crazed. Oh, everybody's stressed, everybody's tired. No, not really.
Mhm.
Not all the time, not to that extent. But because we have become so used to everyone just being crazed and all over the place, and this is just how we live, when
Mhm.
that's not what God called us to. That's not an abundant life. If you're walking around stressed and angry and physically, your body like that, we have to really rein some things in and figure out what needs to come off my plate. What are the
Mhm.
priorities in this season, and plan accordingly.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. We talked a little bit on Instagram about the expectation that society has placed on us,
Hmm.
where we as women, we feel like we have to do all the things. We have
Hmm.
to be groomed to go to college or find some type of trade,
Hmm.
have a career, have a family, or get married, um, have a, all these things, be
Hmm.
involved in social. And
Hmm.
so there's so many things, and you're comparing yourself to other people that are
That's right.
doing it. And so is that a good expectation? Because we
Hmm.
weren't doing all of this back in the 60s. But
No.
back then, there was problems too.
Hmm.
We could
Right.
have done more. So
Hmm.
where is there's always a gray area or
Hmm.
a safe zone. Where is
Right.
the safe zone?
I think that it's important to understand where that's coming from because, again, as a first generation college goer, I'm first generation immigrant. There was a lot of pressure on you getting educated. You have to be educated. I wasn't educated as my mom wasn't, and so she's like, you need to make sure. And so there was a lot of pressure just even within my family. Then I got out into this world, and then not only do you have to do all those things, but they better be perfect,
Mhm.
right? We say, oh no, the messy life, but it's like, no, because there's judgment. There's, oh, you live like that. Oh, and so we live with this expectation that we have to be so good at everything, right?
Mhm.
And when we're not, we go into shame. I should be better at this. I should be a better mom. We use that word. I
Mhm.
should be better at managing my money. And I always ask, why? Who's telling you that?
Mhm.
Where's that coming from? Why should you know what you're doing at whatever age, right? Oh, well, I'm this age. I should know why, right? The expectation is just unrealistic. It is
Mhm.
absolutely unrealistic. And I don't believe that it comes really from women. It's from everything outside
Mhm.
that we see well, I want that type of house. So I'm going to work my butt off. And then you get the house and you're like, I'm miserable
Yeah.
because all I'm doing is housekeeping, and all I'm doing,
Enough,
this house is too
yeah,
big. You
working
know,
to pay the bills.
I'm working to pay the bills, right? We pray for this, and then we're like, I don't really
Mhm,
want this, right? Because we really didn't want that to begin with.
mhm,
We were sort of pushing for something that the world has shown us is important, but really, what is it that I want, right? And
mhm,
so it is unrealistic. There are things that you should want for yourself. It's not about not wanting things, and it's not about not wanting more for yourself and for your family. Like those things
mhm.
are great. However, but if it costs you, everything costs something.
Yes,
There's an opportunity to go. There's Everything costs something, right? And so if your job, you're working two or three jobs and it's taking away from your family, which was my case. I
mhm,
was working, and I realized that I didn't know who my daughter was.
mhm.
Like she was literally being raised by herself. Like she was just doing, and wise, but I was like, wait a minute, this I have to change. Like, wait a
Yeah,
minute, there's something going on, and I don't want this.
mhm.
Because I was so invested in work. I'm a single mom. I was like, I have to work. Who else is going to
Yeah,
work for me?
mhm,
But not to that extent, right?
mhm,
Not to that extent. And it's just really unrealistic. And I had to really understand what was important to me. What did I
mhm,
want? And
mhm.
then I was able to put up those boundaries, and set that
Yeah.
up for myself. But it's unrealistic.
Absolutely.
It's
It is
unrealistic.
it is unrealistic. And we talked earlier about really at the core of our hearts, when we really get down to it, we want maybe a lifestyle that's more simple
Right.
than what we're actually leading or
Hmm.
that we're actually striving for.
Right.
Yes, we want to obtain some things or attain some achievements throughout
Hmm.
life, but there's a time and a place for everything. There's a season for everything. So
Hmm.
while this may be your season to do a certification and add this service if you have a business, it may not be your season to also pursue this other
Hmm.
venture as well.
Right.
Or it might be a season where you need to pour in more to your children or your
That's right.
family.
That's
And
right.
so you have to really continuously prioritize and
Right.
figure out what can I do to accomplish the things that need, and I put need in quotes,
Right.
that
Yes.
need to be done
Hmm.
and still feel fulfilled and
Right.
get what I need
Right.
emotionally and spiritually.
That's right.
And that is the more simple life.
That is, I was talking to a girl that I follow on social media, and she and I have become friends. And she wrote something on Twitter. She was like, "Oh, I want to go back to school." And every time I hear that I need to go back to school, I'm always like, "No, you don't." And I've been at the university, and I'm like, "Nobody needs more education. You guys are good." And she was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "Why?" And when I started asking her questions, it was like, "Well, I feel like I need to. I want something more." Then a couple of days later, she posted something about photography. And she
Mhm,
was like, "Wow, I really wish I had time to do this." And I was like, "You don't need to go to school. How about you pursue photography?" She was like, "Oh, yeah." Like immediately we jump into, I have to do more.
mhm.
I have to do more versus no, scale back
Yeah.
and pursue what you really want. And when she saw that, she was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Don't forget school. Do photography." And
Mhm,
it was like eye opening. You don't
mhm,
need more. And a lot of times we just jump into more education, more this, more that. When in reality, my life now is so. I mean, I my life was where you had to book me 6 months in advance.
mm,
I
mhm.
was so planned out. I always had to do. Now people are like, "Oh, I know you're busy," and I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm home." That doesn't mean I want to see you, but I'm
Yeah.
home. I'm like, that doesn't mean I want to make plans, but I'm
Mhm,
home. I'm like,
mhm,
no, I like my simple life now. Like I've
mhm,
had that busy life. I had the accolades. I had all the job, and now I have nothing, and I love
mhm.
it more. I love it
Mm.
more.
Great point.
Mhm.
Great. And there may be times in your life where you want things to be a little bit more simpler. You want to scale back. There may be
Mhm.
times when you can push forward
That's
and do
right.
a little bit more.
That's
But
right.
and God knows,
Mhm.
what that time is, and trust your gut.
Mhm.
If you start feeling overwhelmed, and we may even start to have some physical
That's right.
symptoms that are
That's right.
telling us you're doing too much.
Mhm.
Your heart rate may go up, you start getting nervous, maybe your stomach is just
A
being
mess.
upset, and headaches,
Yeah.
all of these things.
Right.
Those are physical signs. So really listen to your body.
That's right.
because that is your body is
Hmm.
important. Your body is telling you, slow down, you're doing too
There's something,
much. I
right?
need to
There's something
rest.
off, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's so, and I mean, that's such an important point because I know that when before I had my daughter, I was like, you could not
Mm-hmm.
stop me. I
Mm-hmm.
love to work. I was very career focused and I really enjoyed my job, and you could not stop me. Once she came, obviously it was like, whoa, I can't. I,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sleeping, right? Like
Yeah.
those early
Yeah.
years are tough. Now she's a
Zombie.
teenager. So now
Uh-huh.
she's a teenager, and so now I have more time to do other things. They are seasons, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so, I think, difficult as people to understand that we have to put boundaries within ourselves, and that's and look at boundaries as a gift
Yeah.
from God versus
Mm-hmm.
something that we have to endure.
Mm-hmm.
Like He created seasons as a gift. It's not a punishment.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity, like you said earlier, to grow yourself, because a lot of times He has this plan for us, right? In Jeremiah
Mm-hmm.
29, He has this plan. But there are things that He needs to work out in us in order to get to that plan, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that working that out takes longer
Yeah.
because we're so busy doing everything else that we're
I
not
was,
paying attention to
I was
that
gonna
person.
say, or we're hard headed.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
telling us to stop, and
stubborn,
we don't stop.
prideful. It's like, no, but I can handle it. I can handle it. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe He doesn't want you to, because He wants you to work on your personal development.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe He wants you to work on this one area of your life so that you can go. God is an accelerator too.
Mm-hmm.
When He says go,
Yeah.
in His timing, He will say go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then sometimes He slows us down. We don't like it, we fight it,
Mm-hmm.
and we resist it. But if we look at it instead as a gift, if we look at boundaries as a gift and say, wow, listen, God is doing this for my purpose and for His, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of this, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. It
Yeah.
becomes easier.
Yeah, that is so good. That's a great perspective. If you look at it as a gift
Hmm.
instead of a limitation or something that you don't want to do,
Hmm.
you could possibly find that God is sparing you from something,
That's
or
right.
He's prepping you for something.
Right.
And so,
Right.
wow, great
Right. But if we're
perspective.
so busy doing everything that He didn't call us to do,
Hmm.
or more than He's called us to, because of our feelings, because we don't want to set the boundary, because we don't
Hmm.
want to say no, because we feel so bad. I hear that all the time. Oh, but I feel so bad. The people at my church really need me. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
they don't. You're the only one available. It's not that they need you. You're just the most available
Yeah,
for everything, right? Like, because people will make us think that, oh, we are the shining star, we are the
absolutely.
golden example. But in reality, it's not that. You just available. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
You're always the one that says yes.
You're the one that says yes. So I'm gonna keep going to listen. You will, if you're looking for running water, you're always gonna go to the spout that's open, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so you're not gonna go to the dry one and try to get water out
Hmm.
of that one. You're gonna locate the one that's always giving, right? And so
Absolutely.
people are the same way. And so we have to recognize that for ourselves. That listen, we can't be involved in everything.
Hmm. Yeah. And that leads to another question.
Mm-hmm.
So we often have trouble saying no. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, we just aren't necessarily wired to be mean
Right.
by saying,
Right.
no, I can't do this, or we feel
Mm-hmm.
like we have to have an explanation.
That's
It
right.
just can't be no.
That's right.
So, what are some suggestions of
Mm-hmm.
things that people can say,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're having trouble saying no?
Right. I think that and I go back to this all the time. When you understand what you want, no becomes easier.
Hmm.
And when I say you know what you want, I mean like in the strictest of, I want this relationship with God. My most important relationship is with my daughter, and I don't
Hmm.
want anyone to get involved. Like when we understand what we want, when something comes in that is going to impact that, it's easier to say no,
Hmm.
right? But we have to know what I want
Hmm.
before, right? So that's the first thing. But the second thing is just language. A lot of times it's just that we don't have the language to say it.
Hmm.
We just need the words to
Yeah.
say no. But guess what? It's, you know what? That's a great opportunity. And that sounds wonderful. Unfortunately, I just can't at this time.
Hmm.
Right. And people who are takers will continue to push. No, but you're the best one. Thank you so much for that compliment. And I really appreciate your trust in me. Unfortunately, right now, I am at capacity. I
Hmm.
can't. And
Hmm.
understand that you don't owe anyone an explanation. I remember
Mhm.
my daughter told me one day that her friend wanted her to do something, and she was like, I don't know if I should or not. And she's like, I really want to help her. And then she said, oh, but I mean, I don't have anything else that I'm doing today, so I might as well. And I was like, wait, what were you going to do? And she
Mhm.
was like, well, I just wanted to kind of hang out and I didn't want to do anything. I said, well, then that's what you were doing.
Mhm.
That's exactly what you were doing. You didn't have nothing to do. Your goal for today was just to hang out and be, for yourself.
Absolutely.
Then you
Mhm.
can say no. And she was like, all right, let me right. Like we
Mhm.
always feel that if I'm just sitting around at home doing nothing, then that's a bad thing and that I have to. No,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
don't. And you don't owe anyone an explanation as to what you're doing with your time, even if they ask. Like, oh, well, what are you doing that day? I always like when people ask me, what are you doing on Saturday? Why do you want to know?
Yeah.
Well, what what is it?
None of your business.
What do you why?
Yeah.
Well, what is it? Well, yeah, or when people ask, are you busy? I'm always busy. What do you need? What
Yeah,
is it
that's
that
a
you need?
good
I'm
way to
always
put it.
busy.
I'm
And
always
I always
busy.
say that I'm always busy. What do you need? And they're like, oh, I
Mhm.
just wanted to know if you had time for X, Y, and Z. No, unfortunately, like when friends want to chat, right? I had the habit of dropping everything and just like, okay. And I
Mhm.
had to, again, put boundaries around myself and say, Leslie, no, you don't have time to chat right now. And just
Yeah.
tell them, I can't right now. Can we talk maybe tomorrow?
Mhm.
And then tell them when you are available. I had a
Mhm.
client who told her she was learning, young client who was learning how to tell her friends no. And her friends are like, oh, you want to go this place? She was like, no, I don't have time to do that. But maybe in 2 weeks we can catch up. And her friends were like, what, 2 weeks? And she was like, yeah, that's when I'm available because she was working. She had her own personal goals and she was working out of overtime. They didn't need to know that.
Mhm.
They didn't need to know that. No is no. And when you're available is what you give them.
Mhm.
No one else needs to understand what you're doing with your life. No one. And we
Yeah.
have to, I think you said it earlier, stop looking at it as being mean, because I think that's what it is. Boundaries are not mean. When you and understand it this way. If you are being mean by saying no, right? You're
Mhm.
also being mean to yourself by not keeping the
Yeah.
promise that you have set for yourself. So
Very
instead of
true.
looking at it as being mean to them, you're being mean to yourself when you don't keep promises. Boundaries help you keep promises to yourself, right?
Mhm.
And so whenever you say yes to someone else, yes, you please them, but then you're mean to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for us to just dismiss what we want, dismiss, my needs for the
Mhm.
sake of someone else. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's not a matter of, oh, I'm just so good. We need to be honest with ourselves. Sometimes it's just I get a good feeling from
Yeah.
doing for others. I get that kick of serotonin when someone says, "Oh, you're so good," because your kids are not going to tell you that.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the
They're not.
sacrifice that you're making for them.
Yeah.
That's why I love going to work and doing my volunteer work, because there's nothing like a praise from a church person or
Mhm.
somebody at a volunteer. Oh, you so good. There is nothing like
Mhm.
that praise, and we leave feeling so great. So a
Yes.
lot of times, sometimes we're doing it not because we're so altruistic and we're just so great. It's because we're looking for something ourselves. We're looking for that validation. We're looking for that.
Right.
So we have to understand a little bit more about our needs. But
And that is a great point. If we are looking for validation, and by feeling needed
right,
and pulled on in all these different directions, we're getting that validation, but it's overwhelming us, it's stressing us out.
right.
We're just stretched too thin, and we're not able to commit to the things that are important or more important, like our families.
Hmm.
Then we need to really start to evaluate, um, our values, evaluate, why do I get so much of a kick or a boost out of this? Is there
That's right.
something else that I can replace that with, so
That's
that
right.
I can now have a healthy relationship with
That's right.
saying yes?
That's right.
There may be something else that I can get some fulfillment out of, and feel happy about, versus just being there for everyone when they call
Hmm.
me.
Right, right. And just being okay with, like, and people say it all the time, no is a sentence.
Hmm.
Right, but we want to always be flowery with it and then not feel bad about it. But when you first start setting boundaries, you do feel bad.
Hmm.
And I think that we have to be okay with feeling bad. You can do
Yes.
both.
Hmm.
You can feel bad and feel, like, man, I know I disappointed that person. But you can also feel good, right, that you kept the promise for yourself
Yes.
and look at
Mhm.
it as that. Like, wow, but I
Mhm.
kept my promise. Like, not focusing on how bad they'll feel. And we
Mhm.
don't even know if they're feeling bad. We're making that up.
Yeah,
We're making
we
up a
don't know.
story. Oh, they're probably
Mhm.
devastated because I can't help them. Believe me,
Mhm.
they're off to the next. They're trying to, again, solve their own problem. But
Mhm.
we make up a story about how they're feeling instead of looking at it from that perspective. Say, wow, I can't believe I kept that promise to myself.
Mhm.
Wow, I'm doing this for me, and
Right.
and you're gonna feel good about that.
Yeah. And we're not saying that you should just be selfish or rude.
Right.
And so
Hmm.
you're not just always doing things when you want to do it. And then when someone asks for help, you're not available.
Right.
Um, we're not saying that. But
No.
what we are saying is, take the time to say, okay, instead of focusing on the fact that I'm going to hurt someone else's feelings, am I going to hurt myself?
Hmm.
That's important too,
Right.
because again, this is when you're stretched thin. If
Right.
you do have capacity and it's not impeding on any other priority in your life, by all means, do
Right.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. But I think
Serve
that
as you
that
want to.
right. But I think that that's an important part. Do I even have the capacity? I think that a
Hmm.
lot of times, even with my own clients, what I do is show them their lack of capacity,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
they'll find that 30 minutes. Yeah, but I have time right there. How about you just rest?
Yeah.
How about you just close your eyes? You don't have to be doing something every minute of the day,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And so when we want to help someone, we will find capacity, even when we don't have it, just to say, I did this,
Hmm.
just to say, I wanted to. And we have to really be clear about what capacity means for us. What can our
Absolutely.
bodies really take? What mentally can we involve ourselves with? What can I really take on, and be realistic about that?
Hmm.
I had a high capacity to manage lots of things. I was the PTA president. I was, a dean at an Ivy League university. I was a single mom doing it all on my own. Like, yeah, I have a high capacity to get things done,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean I should have been doing all of it,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Because there's always a cost. There was a
Hmm.
cost to my health.
Yeah.
Excuse me. There was a huge cost to my health. There was a cost to my relationship with my daughter. There was a
Hmm.
cost to other relationships. There's always a cost. And every time you take out of your capacity, you're charging yourself. There's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
something, there's always a cost. And we have to really understand, is that cost worth it? Is it worth it?
Absolutely. I love
Right?
that. So we've got taking a look at your capacity, um, checking to see if what the cost is
Mm-hmm.
too. What is the cost of me doing this, even if I do have some
Mm-hmm.
capacity to do it? That's so important because chances are, when you really look at it in those lenses,
Mm-hmm.
it may not be something that you need to pursue right now.
Right.
I could think about when you talked about takers,
Mm-hmm.
and believe it or not, more people are takers than sometimes they are givers.
Right.
And
Right.
so, I think about just friendships and relationships that I've had in the past. And there was this one person in particular that was going through a very rough time and was considering going through a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had been down that road, but I was also going through a rough time in the relationship that I had at that time, too. She didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a very good job of masking it all.
Mm-hmm.
But, I was a single mom, balancing everything, and then still going through a rough time myself. And here it is, she felt, lonely, didn't have anyone to talk to, and she felt comfortable coming to me. So
Mm-hmm.
again, there was that satisfaction where, oh, someone is
Mm-hmm.
enjoying talking to me, I'm doing something to help, so let
Mm-hmm.
me continue to do it.
That's
But
right.
then it became exhausting.
That's right.
It became, the text messages all the time, the phone calls all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just, can you help me with this? Or let me tell you what happened today. I can't believe he did this, that, and the other. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is
Mm-hmm.
becoming emotionally exhausting for
That's right.
me. And I do want to help you, but I can't. I can't take that
Mm-hmm.
on. And
That's
so
right.
that's when you need to offer suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
If someone needs to see a therapist or
That's
a
right.
counselor, or
That's
they
right.
need to join a support group or something,
That's
or
right.
maybe they just need to join a club. They need to get a
Right.
hobby.
Right. But I think what you said was so important. I felt good helping.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was getting something out of this,
Mhm.
right? I felt good. And
Yeah.
somebody needs me, right?
Mhm.
And we do feel good when that happens.
Mhm.
But then
Yeah,
it
then it
gets
became too
it
much.
becomes too much,
It
right?
became too much. And, at first I was just throwing hints like,
Right.
oh, well, I'm busy tonight. I can't, talk tonight. Then it's the next day. Well, what about after you get off work tomorrow? And I'm thinking, I'm going to be busy tomorrow too. I just don't
Hmm.
want to do it. Like I'm
Right,
becoming
right.
exhausted by this. This is becoming too much for me.
That's
It's
right.
exceeded my boundary, but now I don't know how to get myself
Right.
out of it.
How do you say
And
no?
yeah.
Right. When you know
And
someone is in pain,
eventually,
you know?
yeah, eventually I just had to kind of close the book, close
Hmm.
the chapter.
Hmm.
It didn't feel good, but I had to do that because I was uncomfortable with saying no and getting
Hmm.
myself out of it.
That's right.
So we've got to again become comfortable with
Hmm.
using that verbiage
Hmm.
and cutting it off sooner and
Right.
maybe giving that person limitations earlier. Like
Hmm.
for example, oh, I can't take phone calls after 9 or text. I
Hmm.
can't do that after that time.
Hmm.
Or, during the week, my schedule is jam packed. I'm
Hmm.
busy. I
Right.
like to keep my sanity. So
Hmm.
therefore, I
Hmm.
can't chit chat as much during the week.
Right, right. But I think I also, one of the things that women tend to do is be passive aggressive because we don't
Mhm.
want to hurt the person's feelings. And then what winds up happening is the person's feelings wind up getting hurt because they feel ignored
Yeah.
and they feel, abandoned.
Mhm.
Instead of just being clear from the very beginning and saying, you know what, I really want to be there for you. And I feel that I don't have the capacity to help you in the way that you
Mhm.
deserve.
Mhm.
Would you be open to seeing a therapist? Would you be open to going to counseling at the church? Would you be open to doing these things?
Mhm.
Because as much as I want to help you, I just don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
And having that conversation, that's more respectful, right?
Mhm.
I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine, this was years ago, and she kept talking about this boyfriend that wasn't a boyfriend, it was the father of her children. And I wound up yelling at her. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of you talking about this man.
Mhm.
Listen, either you stay with him or you don't, but just stop talking to me about him. Make
Yeah.
your decision and leave me alone. And she was like, ah, she was so hurt.
Mhm.
And years later, now we talk about it and laugh. She was like, it was what I needed to hear, you
Mhm.
know. Now, that's not what you should say.
Yeah.
I've learned better
You can say it
language.
nicer.
I've learned better
But
language,
yeah,
but it was because I was at capacity and I
you
was so
were.
sick of hearing the same nonsense over and over.
Mhm.
But I know now that when it gets to that point where I'm feeling agitation
Mhm.
or the conversation, because I think we have to understand what our bodies feel like, and again, our capacity. When I started feeling agitated and my spirit, every time I saw her call, I wouldn't pick up. Like those are all signs. When I
Yeah.
just started telling her, listen, this is what you need to do. Just when I just started becoming more direct, I knew,
Mhm.
okay, it's time. And just
Mhm.
have that conversation. There's so much more respect, compassion when you can say, listen, you just need more help than I'm able to offer.
Mhm.
And I don't have the capacity to help you in the way that you deserve, because we all
Yes.
deserve that compassion.
Yes, absolutely. We do. And so there's a way to say it nicely. There's a
Yeah, there
way to
is.
be direct and get your point across and be helpful, but to see your way out of it as well.
Exactly, exactly. And not wait so long, as you say,
Hmm.
because when you wait is when you become like I was, nasty. So I'm
Yeah.
tired of hearing about this boy,
Part
right?
of it.
And you just don't want to get to that point. You
Y-
want to, be able to tell them in a way that's loving.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap out here soon. But what would you say to the person that says, okay, it is January 2023. I'm going to do some things differently. I've got like 10 things that I'm a part of, 10
Hmm.
organizations or 10 responsibilities on this list.
Hmm.
And I want to back out of 5 of them.
Hmm.
How do I go about doing it? Do I just abruptly say, you know what, I can't come to any more meetings or I can't
Hmm.
assist you in this manner? How do I begin to relinquish some of my responsibilities
Hmm.
and get my peace and establish effective boundaries?
That's exactly what you do. You end it abruptly. And I think that again, it goes back to, well, I feel so bad. I've committed myself. I've done this. One, you start off with an apology,
Mhm.
because what happens is when we overcommit, right? And then we have to be abrupt. You know what? Now they're in our own drama. Now we've involved them because now they may not have the capacity to find someone else. And so they may not be able to even do that. We have to humbly come
Mhm.
and end things, right? because now they're left in the lurch. They're left, now trying to scramble and find things, right? But it's also not my responsibility to take on the ownership of that, right? My
Hmm.
responsibility is
Yes.
to apologize,
Yes.
and just say, you know what, I'm sorry to have to do this to you, but unfortunately I really am at capacity. I've tried to manage this. This has been a great opportunity, but unfortunately, as of, and give them 2 weeks, I can no longer be part of this
Yes.
project,
Hmm.
and hold the line.
Hmm.
Because what's going to happen is, well, can you give us 1 day a week? Can you give us this? Can you give us this? Can you give us that? The answer is no. Unfortunately, I can't. I'm really, truly at capacity, and I apologize because I know that I've now put you in a really bad
Hmm.
situation. It was not my intention, but now I am unfortunately in a mess. Because what happens when we get ourselves, when we're people pleasers, or when we just want to help everyone, we get ourselves in a mess, and we get other people joining
Hmm.
our mess, right?
Hmm.
And then we spend more time cleaning things up versus being very direct and understanding what our capacity is, right?
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
I always start off with an apology. I'm so sorry that I can't do this anymore. However, as of giving 2 3 weeks or whatever it is that you want to give them, I won't be able to do anything as of this time. This is what I will do in these 2 weeks. I will wrap up this, I'll contact this, I'll do this, so that you're not left, right? But then after those 2 weeks, I'm done, right? You give them
Yeah.
things that they can work with, and help them out in any way that you can. And that way it's respectful. You're apologizing and acknowledging that it was you that messed up, and then giving them some leniency, or just some things that you can offer them. But then you stick to that deadline, and you're like, you know what, as of today
Yes.
I can no longer help. And it's
Yeah.
better to be abrupt. We created the mess,
Yeah.
right? We have to acknowledge that it was me. I created this mess.
Hmm.
This was my fault. I shouldn't have done this. And then be upfront about it, right? We
Hmm.
try to be sometimes too passive aggressive, give hints. Maybe they'll pick it up. Maybe if I start showing up to the meeting, no, that's worse. And
Yeah, it is.
you're digging a bigger hole, and then you're gonna feel horrible at the end when you realize, oh my gosh, now it's just so much worse. Versus just being clear and upfront, and just saying it. I've gotten myself into many a problem doing it that way versus just being upfront about it.
Yeah. I love how you said it's going to be abrupt, but you're really kind of just treating it like you would a job.
Right.
Sometimes when you're getting ready to leave, and if you are through, you're like, you know what, this is my 2 weeks notice.
That's
And
right.
I know I'm working on a project right now, and it was going to take 3 months to get it done, but now someone else is going to have to pick up the
That's
slack.
right. That's right.
But you've been courteous enough to give them 2 weeks.
That's right.
And if you are upfront and you are aware of your broad width and or your bandwidth and your purpose and your priorities, all that stuff that we talked about earlier,
Mhm.
then you will not get yourself into those messes to begin with.
That's right, exactly. And that's what we're trying to avoid. Like
Hmm.
avoid and by being clear about your capacity, understanding what it is, you'll avoid taking on more and more and more
Hmm.
things. But if you are at the point where you're like, I can't handle it, be direct, apologetic, set the boundaries of when you're going to stop this, and give them that notice, and stick to your boundaries no matter what they say, because
Hmm.
they will make you sound like the rock star you want to feel like. But that is not the point. The point is, I can no longer do this.
Yes. Yeah. Yep, very true.
Mhm.
So I'm sharing here on the screen
Yes.
your website and contact information. How can people find you on social media?
Okay, so I'm mostly on Instagram. That's really my home right now. I did start a YouTube channel, which I'm excited about, posting things more on time management. So you could follow me there. But I'm mostly on Instagram. And then my website is leslielimardo.com. And you can also join my email list, where
Mhm.
every week I share something about my life, some mess that I got myself into, and then how I'm getting myself out, and the lessons that I've learned. So it's always a good time on my email list.
Yes. All right. Great. I am so excited to share this with other people, and
Mhm.
you that have watched it, please share with people because I think this was a excellent topic. There
Mhm.
were so many great nuggets that were shared, and so I'm just so thankful, Leslie, that you
Yeah,
joined us today.
thank
And
you.
um, this will be a great reminder for people as they continue on with the year as well.
That's right.
There needs to be some check-ins
That's right.
to make sure that they are living in their boundaries.
That's right.
And so you guys can also follow me.
Hmm.
Find out more about the Confident Lily at confidentlily.com. You will also find the She Exudes devotional, which covers a host of topics and loving on yourself and finding more time for yourself, which
Hmm.
is kind of what we talked about today as far as boundaries. So feel free to check that out as well. But we are out of here. Any parting words that you would like to say to our guest or
I
to
just
our
want to
audience?
remind, yeah, I just want to remind everyone that you're just so precious to God, and that the topic of boundaries is really a gift. It's a guardrail for you to really live out his promises and to really live out the life that he has for you. So when you feel badly, or when you're feeling like, oh, this is so hard, just understand that there's a purpose, there's a bigger purpose for this, and it's really in teaching you. But there's so much more that he has for you, so don't worry about the season that you're in.
Mhm.
There's so much more that he has for you, so just be patient. He's got
Yes.
you. He's got you.
Yeah. Great. That's a great advice, great tidbit. And we are out of here until next time. Thank you guys for watching.
Bye bye.